Welcome to the Private School Leader Podcast, where private school leaders learn how to thrive and not just survive as they serve and lead their schools. I strongly believe that it is possible to have a long and happy and fulfilling career as a private school leader. And my passion is to help you figure out exactly how to do just that, right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. And I'm your host, Mark Minkus. So in November of 2022, something happened that changed the world, and it can change how you do your job. And technology has advanced so much in the last decade, the last couple of decades, and artificial intelligence has become more and more mainstream and has come into more and more parts of our life. But in November of 2022, a company called OpenAI, which is an artificial intelligence research company, they created ChatGPT and launched that tool. And understandably, a lot of people were kind of wary of the AI and ChatGPT. A lot of people don't understand it. Perhaps they feel like AI is going to replace human workers and their ethical concerns, and maybe there will be an erosion of important skills among students that turn into adults. And then there's always that existential fear that AI will someday surpass human intelligence and the AI will take over. Well, we're not going to get into all of that today, but what we are going to do is we're going to discuss how I believe that we actually need to embrace this technology, specifically ChatGPT, and put it to work for us. And on today's episode of the Private School Leader Podcast, we are going to discuss 6 ways that AI can help you do your job. Number 1, administrative tasks. Number 2, improved communications. Number 3, event planning. Number 4, family engagement. Number 5, grant writing. And number 6, facilities and maintenance. I think we could all use help with all of those things, and we're going to learn how AI can help you do your job. So before we get into today's topic, I wanted to let you know that I've created a free resource for you called The 6 Things That Every Private School Teacher Wants from Their Leader. And this guide is a 6-page PDF that could be a game changer for you and your leadership in this upcoming school year. And I guarantee that if you do these 6 things, the teachers at your school will be happy to follow you. And you can get your guide by going to theprivateschooleader.com/guide. And that's the 6 things that every private school teacher wants from their leader at theprivateschooleader.com/guide. And another free resource for you, just to say thank you for listening to the podcast. This one's called The Top 6 Ways to Protect Your School from a Lawsuit. And we all know that litigation is expensive and time-consuming and extremely stressful. And so I created a common sense guide. It's a 10-page PDF, and it can help you be more intentional and proactive when it comes to protecting your school and keeping yourself out of court. And so this guide can be found at theprivateschooleader.com/lawsuit. And that's the top 6 ways to protect your school from a lawsuit, theprivateschooleader.com/lawsuit. And that's free for you, just as a resource to help you out and to say thank you for listening to the podcast. And as a private school leader, I don't have to tell you that you have a very, very difficult job, and you make hundreds of decisions every day, and you're trying to keep everyone safe and increase enrollment and keep the parents happy, keep the board happy, motivate the teachers, deal with student discipline, beat last year's test scores, and come in under budget. And then when you've done all that and you've done the impossible, then make sure that you take care of yourself and don't be a jerk to your family. And if that sounds like I just described your job and that sounds unsustainable, then I would encourage you to check out Thrive Academy. And this is a new online course that I created just for you to help you thrive and get out of survival mode and not feel overwhelmed and get back to feeling energized and fulfilled at school. I used to be where you are, and I figured it out, and I can teach you how to make it better. So Thrive Academy, check it out at theprivateschooleader.com/thrive. That's theprivateschoolleader.com/thrive. And then finally, if you've gotten any value from this podcast and you've ever wondered what it would be like to work one-on-one with a leadership coach, I would love to connect with you to talk about that and see the value that you could derive from working with me one-on-one to help you with your leadership and to help you grow yourself, grow your school, help you be more successful. And theprivateschoolleader.com/coaching is where you can find out more about that. Okay, so I was talking about ChatGPT, and I just want to kind of give a starting point that to say that I think that ChatGPT is a starting point and not the be-all, end-all of all of the things that we're going to do, all the things that we're going to talk about today that can help us as private school leaders. And so what I'm getting at is that when you generate content, when you generate lists, when you generate paragraphs or whatever kind of content, the way that you ask the question or put the message into ChatGPT, I'm never going to suggest that you just copy and paste and print, and put that in your handbook or make that a board policy or send that to a parent or anything like that. But it is a starting point, and it's actually a little more than a starting point. You have so much to do. You have so much to write. You have so much to edit. You have so much to think about. You have so much to create. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I just stare at my screen and that little cursor sometimes is sitting there blinking at me, and it just feels overwhelming. And so sometimes we need a starting point. We've got that writer's block. We're just stuck. And I've found over the past couple of years that ChatGPT has been a real game changer for me. And so, again, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. I think we need to lean into this tool to help us. And so just very quickly before we get into our list, ChatGPT is artificial intelligence, AI, and it's a language model that uses natural language processing, NLP, and machine learning techniques to generate responses to any questions or queries or statements that you would put in to ChatGPT. So it's out there gathering through NLP, natural language processing, and machine learning. It's trying to get those responses. And the GPT-3 model uses a generative pre-trained transformer, and that's where you get GPT from, generative pre-trained transformer, GPT. And it uses an algorithm, and it finds patterns out there in data sequences, and it's basically pulling from articles and from handbooks and from policy manuals and from blog posts and anything that's out there on the internet at the speed of light practically. It's just moving through all of that and then kind of coming up with a very, very specific answer and suggestions for what you're asking. And so the sentence structure, the language, the grammar, it just allows you to understand the context and generate appropriate responses. And you can also tell it to make it longer or make it shorter or have this on an 11th grade reading level or put this in a 5th grade reading level and all of those kinds of things. And then it'll come back with those answers. And so some of you have used ChatGPT before. Maybe many of you have, but I will admit I was initially apprehensive about it. But once I started using it, it's been a game changer. And so let's talk about the 6 ways that AI can help you do your job. So number 1 is that ChatGPT can help you with administrative tasks. So for example, generate job descriptions. Let me give you a broader example of that. And so last summer, I was working with a client that I coach. She runs a big Christian school in Iowa, and the school has grown a lot over the last 4 or 5 years, which means adding a lot of leaders, and the job descriptions needed attention. I think they were kind of thrown together. Maybe there were a couple of newer positions that didn't even have a job description. And so if you're sitting down to write a job description for a middle school, high school dean of students, in a Catholic school, or if you're sitting down to write a job description for a curriculum coordinator in a K-8 Jewish day school, or you're sitting down to write a job description for an upper school head of upper school in an independent independent school of X size. Maybe it's an all-girls school. So just specifically, what the job would be. And if you go to ChatGPT, and you probably have already guessed that the call to action at the end of this episode is going to be to go there and to just, mess around with it a little bit. But there'll be a space at the bottom, like a box where you type in things. And so you just type that in, please generate a job description for a 7th through 12th grade dean of students at such and such type of school. And you're going to see that there are going to be things on there that you didn't even think of, because this AI is going out there and it's finding all of the job descriptions for people that have that title or similar titles that's available on the World Wide Web, and just bringing it into something concise and usable. And so just the time that saves to get you started, and then you go in, copy, paste, edit. I never say copy, paste, print, or copy, paste, send, but copy, paste, edit, and it gives you that starting point. So with number one, administrative tasks, one example is generate job descriptions. Another example is your student handbooks or employee handbooks. So if you're listening to this in real time, you're in late June, early July, and this is the time of year where many of us are reviewing, editing, coming up with some new language for the student handbook and for the employee handbook. And so if you're kind of stuck on something, again, with ChatGPT, you can just put that in there and get some ideas. And sometimes it'll take the different complex aspects of it and just put it in a more user-friendly way, and it'll help you get past that obstacle however you're stuck. And again, remember that in a moment, in the blink of an eye, it is going out there. And I told you before that this is a language model that is using an algorithm and all this data that's out there, and is using machine learning to generate these responses. And so my point in saying that is that all the handbooks from all of the private schools and this attendance policy, or this specific thing about dress code, or this specific thing about eligibility for sports, for example, it's going to draw from all of that and then spit something out for you that I think is going to be super helpful. And then the last thing under administrative tasks is policy creation. Whether it's a board policy or whether it's just something that, again, might appear in a handbook, but, it could be about tuition payments. Maybe your school, if you use facts or something similar to that, then, or you're on a continuous enrollment model, then maybe that's not as much of an issue for you. But, whatever the sticking point is for you in your school, and you're like, boy, we really need a policy for that. Okay, well, how do you start? Where do you start? Well, I think it's a great idea to just put a few sentences into ChatGPT and then just start looking at the user-friendly, concise list that it spits out. And I promise you it's going to give you things that you hadn't thought of before. So want to save you some time. You're too busy. And so the first way that ChatGPT and AI can help you do your job is with administrative tasks. Okay, number 2 is improved communications. So let's talk about parent correspondence for a moment. You could generate personalized updates and announcements for parents. So let's say, okay, this popped into my head, head lice. All right. And if you've dealt with that as a school leader, it probably gave you a similar emotional reaction. I have 3 daughters who all have long hair, and head lice went through our school a couple of times when they were in elementary school. And so my point is that, okay, so let's say that it's a parent email about head lice, and for that matter, let's say you have a policy on head lice, and you copy and paste that into the ChatGPT bar there, and then you ask it to generate a parent informational parent email. Well, it's going to take your information, and it's going to generate something that you can copy, paste, and edit. Maybe it's keeping them informed about after school activities or about student progress reports, things like that. So maybe it's a way to create some templates so that when these things come along that are regularly occurring communications in your school, that you don't have to start from scratch. We deal with cognitive load is a real thing. Decision fatigue is a real thing. And having less ability to think creatively later in the day is a real thing. And so, you sit down to write one of these parent emails, and it shouldn't be that hard, but it feels hard. And so you need to get some help. And I think that ChatGPT is a way to get you over the hump, and then it just becomes a lot easier to write it once you've gotten that help to get started. And then another thing under improved communications is like newsletter content. So if you have a weekly newsletter, depending on the size of your school, you might have a team, a communications director, director of public relations and marketing, someone that's responsible for that. But it also might be that you as the head of school are the communications team and everything in between. And so when it comes to, like I said, it's the facts of the spelling bee or the team winning the championship or the new robotics program, at your school, highlighting important events, achievements, things like that, generating newsletter content that's written in a, at such and such grade level, reading level. You can just dump it in there and see what it puts out for you, and it's going to help. And so, again, you're not having a robot run your school. You're not having a robot that's, we hate it when we call for customer service and we get these, automated things. These are, you're still a real person, and you're still generating these emails and this content. But why start from scratch every single time when you have this tool that you could use? All right. The third way that I think that ChatGPT can help you do your job is with event planning. And so event planning can be really stressful because if you're anything like me, you're always worried you're going to forget something. And so let's just I just tried this in preparation for this podcast episode, and I put create an event checklist for a private school leader who is in charge of a middle school dance. Like, that's what I typed into the ChatGPT bar. Create an event checklist for a private school leader who is in charge of a middle school dance. And what it spit out for me was, it started with 6 to 8 weeks out, and then 2 weeks out, and then a week out, and then the day of. And it was a checklist of, everything from budget and decorations, security, food, maintenance, cleanup. All of the things are right there. And so just subtract middle school dance and plug in the thing. And so it could be events that you've been doing for years, but maybe they just need a refresher. And what I mean by refresher is that it's an event that you've been doing for years, but maybe you don't have a really good checklist for it. And then there's always that stress that you're going to forget something. And then the second thing under event planning is event promotional materials. Again, you have the event, you want to promote it. You could put in there, come up with a 100 word, that'd be pretty short, a 100 word blurb or parent email or news release or blah, 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 to promote XYZ, event with a couple of details from the event. Hit enter, boom, it's going to spit that out. And again, copy, paste, edit. Don't start from scratch when you don't have to. There's enough things that you have to start from scratch because they're so complex, and it's a parent issue, student problem, blah, blah, blah. Things that are repeatable things that are lower stakes, lean into using ChatGPT and AI to help you with these things. Okay, we're on to number 4. The fourth way that ChatGPT can help you do your job is family engagement. So I'm specifically thinking about creating a parent survey here. So maybe you have a parent survey and it's really good and you're very diligent in that going out every spring. Or maybe you're like many private school leaders where you have good intentions about a parent survey and it takes time to write the questions and to, okay, well, this is a way to get the ball rolling so that this survey actually exists. And honestly, once you have it, and if you spend the time to make it really capture the questions that you're going for, then you can repeat it and send it out at around the same time every year. And I know that there's stuff on the back end as far as gathering the data and how you then have to take time to read the data, interpret the data, things like that. But you first have to start. And I think there's a lot of school leaders out there that would benefit from a lot of feedback from parents, and we have good intentions about a parent survey, but we don't have time to create one. Well, ChatGPT can help you with that. And then another thing with family engagement is community building. Just go into ChatGPT, suggest strategies for fostering a strong school community and improving stakeholder relationships. And so let's say that you want to, you type in a bunch of stuff that kind of describes your school community and your enrollment and the size and maybe even the demographics of your most of your families, and just suggest ideas that would build stronger school community. Enter. It's going to spit some stuff out that's going to be like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Again, a lot of this depends on the size of your team, but if you have a big team, I'm telling you, it's not just a capacity thing for you, but it's also, why reinvent the wheel? There are a lot of good ideas out there, and sometimes we get into our little echo chamber with our little school in our little community, and we are running back the same ideas again and again, year after year, and AI is using the algorithm to just draw all these ideas that are out there that exist. And so another way to increase family engagement. And then number 5 is grant writing. And I think that this is one of the biggest things at the top of the list. If we had a list called, I don't have the time, but I wish I could blank, grant proposals, grant writing is probably for private school leaders is near the top of that imaginary list. And so grant writing can be it can be very time consuming. Again, depending on the size of your school, if you have an advancement team, if you have a director of institutional advancement, they are perhaps the one that's putting all the grant writing proposal in there, and you're adding a little bit to it and signing off on it. Well, yeah, but most private schools, we don't have a team. We don't have a big team, and it's you, and it's good intentions. And boy, wouldn't it be nice if we had money for that new playground? Okay, well, connecting the money that's out there to it coming into your school to fund needed programming or equipment or professional development opportunities or fill in the blank. I know that it's not going to fill out, ChatGPT isn't going to fill out the grant proposal line by line for you, but there are going to be things where you need to describe the project and you need to, talk about its benefit to the school and to the larger community and all of those kinds of things. If you put some prompts into ChatGPT, it's going to crank out some stuff that you can copy paste and then edit, and it will get you started. And once you write a grant and you get that money, it's going to be addictive because it's like you just really want to not leave that money on the table. And if it's out there, why shouldn't it go to your school? It's just a matter of if it is a matter of time. this AI tool, ChatGPT, can help you with that. And that brings us to number 6 on our list of 6 ways that AI can help you do your job. Number 6 is facilities and maintenance. So, for example, ChatGPT could crank out checklists for routine preventative maintenance, and that could be with, the boiler or the heating system or the roof, or all the plumbing in the school, for example. ChatGPT can help with work order management. Create a work order management schedule, cleaning staff scheduling. Crisis management. What's a crisis management plan for if the school is flooded, or if the heat stops working, or if the electricity, if it's an internal problem? It's not like the supplier of your energy is having a problem at the plant or at the line. It's like internal. If there's a crisis at your school that involves the physical plant, the building and grounds, do you have a plan? Well, again, you could put some stuff in there into ChatGPT, and it could give you the start or a mostly formed plan that then could exist in a manual that you hope you never need, but if you do, you could pull it out. And I'll give you one quick example. I typed in there, what kind of inspection is required in the state of Pennsylvania for an elevator in a school building? So I'll hit you with that again. What kind of inspection is required in Pennsylvania for an elevator in a school building? And it just started spitting out, this type of inspection and this law and this, you know what I mean? It's like these things that I didn't know, because at the school that I work at, we have a facility director, and he's responsible for making sure that elevator gets inspected every year. Well, a lot of the school leaders that I coach, it's a 1-person or 2-person show, and they have their hand in facilities, whether that's something that they feel comfortable doing or not. So let's get some help with all of this. So what are the big takeaways from today's episode? The 6 ways that AI can help you do your job. With ChatGPT, can help you with number 1, administrative tasks. Number 2, improved communications. Number 3, event planning. Number 4, family engagement. Number 5, grant writing. And number 6, facilities and maintenance. And I told you earlier, gave you a sneak peek on the call to action. What I want you to do this week is to take 15 minutes, go to chatgpt.com, and just set up your free account. It's free. And then just mess around a little bit. Take one of the suggestions from this episode and type it into the little message box at the bottom of the screen, and see what it spits out. And just start to think, how could this help me do my job in low stakes, repeatable tasks, or in things where maybe we've just been stale and kind of running back the same ideas or the same things year after year after year. Okay, so let's wrap it up. I want to tell you about one additional resource that I have for you. I mentioned 2 at the top of the episode. Well, this one is called How to Use Verbal Judo to Have Better Conversations with the Parents at Your School. And so verbal judo is a communication strategy that focuses on using words to de-escalate conflict and resolve disputes. And George Thompson and Jerry Jenkins wrote a book called Verbal Judo, The Gentle Art of Persuasion. And George Thompson has actually trained over 200,000 law enforcement officers with verbal judo. And now, I don't know about the parents at your school, but I know that some of them, if we're talking about using words to resolve conflicts, de-escalate situations, sounds like something that we could probably use. So you can get your free copy of this 9-page PDF over at theprivateschoolleader.com/judo. Again, I would like to give you the free gift of how to use verbal judo to have better conversations with the parents at your school, just to say thank you for listening. And you can get that over at theprivateschoolleader.com/judo. And again, I'd love to work with you one-on-one. Find out more about that at theprivateschoolleader.com/coaching. And I also really believe that Thrive Academy can change your life, that this digital online course can take you from where you are to where you want to be, that this transformation isn't going to happen by accident. It's going to happen with you being intentional. And so check out Thrive Academy at theprivateschoolleader.com/thrive. And I'd love to hear from you about, anything that you've learned from the podcast, or if you've had a pain point from this past school year that was significant for you. mark.o.minkus@gmail.com. Shoot me an email. Please subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And the show notes for today's episode are at theprivateschoolleader.com/episode 89. And wherever you listen to this podcast, if you would go and please write a review and rate the podcast, that helps push this out. The algorithm pushes it out as suggested content for private school leaders all over the world. And I'm on Twitter at the PS Leader and on Instagram at the Private School Leader. And if you got value from this episode, I would just love it if you would share the link with another leader at your school, another leader in your life, or an aspiring leader at your school. We need to raise up these leaders. So I've been your host, Mark Minkus. I appreciate you so much and all the hard work that you've been doing all school year long. And I just really appreciate you taking time out of your busy week to join me here today. And I'll see you next time right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. And until then, always remember to serve first, lead second, and make a difference.